Hi folks, I'm Matt and I am ranking all of my board games in my collection. Folks, we are at 210. That's number 210 there, and this is Conquest of Nerath. This is from Dungeons & Dragons, and it's basically a battle game, but with some of the nicest minis ever. There are options where you can go into a dungeon and probably fight a monster or two, which would be fun, can give you some victory points, can give you some special abilities in the game, but most likely you're going to be battling. Now, the reason I like this game is A, of course, for the minis, but two, it scales perfect. I played this game for the first time ever with 2 players. We had a 4-player game going, which is the best. It's the best to play. But suddenly, 2 of my gamers, found out as I was setting up the game, they had to leave. Now that kind of sucks, so I had to remove them. I looked at the other person I was playing with and said, do you want to get something else? And I said, no, let's just go in let's play this. I went, well, as a 2-player game goes, we're probably not going to fight each other. We're probably going to, get the easy points, which is grabbing land, and we probably won't do that many fights. I said, this is probably going to disappoint me. No, very quickly we started getting into battles. I think we lasted maybe 2 rounds. It's like, oh, we are going to fight, because the game is all about fighting and building up your armies. Yeah, you can go to the dungeon and get some special abilities, which is nice, but every time you go down that dungeon, it gets harder, because instead of 1 monster, you have to fight 2 monsters. Instead of 2 monsters, you have to fight 3 monsters, so on and so forth. My first game, I lost. It was a humiliating loss for me, because I thought going to the dungeons, getting all these special abilities or special cards were going to be a great strategy, and getting a few victory points. Well, while I was wasting and pouring tons of resources into just going into dungeons, my land was getting eat up. Other people were scoring points faster, because if you take over someone's territory, you automatically score a point. Another thing I like about this battle game is that sea battles matter a whole lot. It's not just ship versus ship. If you have heroes on there, they can fight in the battle too. You have elementals, which can move over land and sea, and they can join in the battle too. So there's a lot of play there, and plus ships are very important. If you get near someone's dock next to a castle, they have to take out your ship before they can spawn people there. So you can actually block out any incoming, or any, for them from expanding on that castle if you want to take that castle for a lot of points too. I love the different levels of strategy here. The game is fairly simple once you start playing it, and it looks beautiful on the board. This is a showstopper for us. I remember we brought this out at BGG SpringCon a few years back, and everyone kept looking, going, what game is this again? Because they were just really impressed by all the minis and everything. I think this is another game you get for slightly cheap, but even if it is a little bit more expensive, it's because of all those beautiful minis. And every dragon, every monster is a different mold for each different player, and even their foot soldiers are all different too. There's very little that are the same. I think your hero is also different too. Either way though, really awesome game, well worth your time. Conquest of Nerath, my number 210. Number 209 is a new game to my collection. It's called Palazzo. I think it's by Reiner Knizia, I think is his name. But it is just a really fun game where you're building, moving around this board, doing little bids for certain tiles, building those tiles stacked on stacked of these all your different buildings, trying to get buildings of the same color, trying to get some buildings with windows on it for extra victory points. Really neat, kind of simple, straightforward game. This is a game that's been out for a while, and I'd looked at it here or there, but it's so cheap. I think I got it for like $8. I mean, you get this game for super cheap, and it's a lot of fun. In fact, to be honest with you, it would probably be ranked a lot higher if it hadn't gotten lost in the shuffle. This is one of the games that I reviewed and then never played again this year, but I really want to play it. It's just that I have so many games now that not every game can get played back after the review. So this is a game that just got buried under other games, but I am going to get it out again, probably earlier this year. That'll be one of the first ones I get out, because I do want to play it again. I had a great time with it. It's just if all these new games coming in and that's what happens to some of my games. They get buried among all the other newer ones. But Palazzo is one I'm definitely going to keep again and play again, and I'm excited for it, because like I said, there's a lot of different strategy there. There's some penalties if you don't complete certain buildings, if you don't build them that high too, and there are options to tear buildings down. So with all of those little strategies in the game, it's really worth your time checking out. At number 208 is Architects of the Colosseum, and this game, it's kind of like a rondel in a way. You're moving around a chariot X amount of spaces and then taking that action. You're either gathering resources, gathering tiles to add to how many resources you can get, getting extra wheel bonuses, because that'll help you move or skip over certain spaces to move your vehicle or the chariot to a place you want. And then of course exchanging all those goods in to build the Colosseum pieces and scoring some big victory points. Colosseum is a 3D piece. You're sticking these little tiles in a row, and at the end it looks like a 3D Colosseum. That's kind of cool. When I got the game was almost at full price. I was like, it's not worth full price. Well, guess what, folks? It has dropped significantly. You can get this game for a pretty decent price now, and if that's the case, then yeah, you should get it. It is a fun game. At the price I paid for, I figured that it should be a lot lower. Now it's at the price point where I can safely say, yeah, get it, it's worth your time. It really is a lot of fun. There really is a lot of strategy. Even building the Colosseum isn't all the victory points you can get. There are other ways to get victory points in this game by having the most amount of certain tiles too. Well, to have even, I guess, distribution of the tiles. There's just it's a really smart game. I think this also is by TMG as well. They make some great games, and this is one of them. My number 207 is a new game added to my collection. Thank you for Ollie's, the discount market store that carried it. It is Gekido or Gekido. Basically, it's robot battling. I'm all about battling some robots out here, and that's what it's got. You are playing cards to attack different robots on a very small board, trying to deal damage with them with your dice rolls and everything. And it's just a really smart game. Each character is different. Each ability is different, and the game forces you to always attack someone different, so it avoids that ganging up on someone for player elimination. You're also having choices to level up your droid and give him upgrades as he goes along too. And if you have an Ollie's discount market and you're watching this video, it still should be for about 10-15 bucks, I think, in the store, and it's great. It's a great game. It's kind of funny because Seema and I made fun of a lot. And this year, now finally, I have, I think, 3 Seema games in my collection, and Gekido is one of those games, and it's actually worth keeping. Those minis, like I said, their minis look amazing. Their game usually sucks. The gameplay sucks. But this one, the game is pretty tight, and it's a lot of fun. I've only played this one with my nephews because I know they thought it would be cool, but this is a game I'd happily bring out to my adult gaming group too, because Gekido, that's where it's at. Number 207. Number 208 is another Queen game into my collection. Absolutely love it. It's a new game. It's called Discover India. Discover India, you are basically traveling around India, going to different cities, collecting certain tiles, and matching those tiles on your own little player mat. You want the more colors that match up, the bigger the points you get. Now, that doesn't mean you want to get all of one color. You want to have several different colors on the board and several matches. Some of these and you can only lay them in a certain order. Anything that connects to that one tile, you can play. Now, these pathways will split out sometimes, and you do have a reserve space where you can put one in reserve or take one out of reserve and play it instead of the one you took. So there's some strategy there. And to be honest, it does not benefit you to get more than 8 in a row, I think, because that's the maximum points you can get. If you keep collecting them, you're doing yourself a disservice. You want to have a good balance of at least 3 or 4 solid ones. You can even get 5 in there too. There's like 9 different colors or icons in the game. And there are ways to get different points in the game. Going to different festivals, going to different areas can give you bonus points. And the game does behoove you to stretch out and visit as many towns in India as you can to get some of those victory points. It's a really smart game where some of those extra those cards of the places you can go to, you can collect those cards at the end. It's just 1 victory point each, but these games can be very tight at the end because everyone is basically getting a few different colors and they're getting the same amount of points. So those extra bonus cards come in big. That's really helped a lot of times we played. This is a game that does get played a lot even after my review. I do play it. I don't feel like I've played it enough though, because I just love the game. Game you can get for super cheap again, has no queenies, doesn't need queenies. It's a fun game on its own. It looks really beautiful. Unfortunately, the reason mine was really cheap, I think it was $5, was because it was the German edition, so all the rules were in German, so I had to go online to print the American rules. You don't, but all the cards are in German too, which kind of sucks, or Italian or French. I can't remember whatever foreign version I got. And that's kind of sad because it gives you a history of those little, places you go to visit. And I would have loved to have read about those. But it doesn't matter because the victory point's on there, so you know what it is. But Discover India. If you're a Queen Games fanatic like me, forget that ugly, I don't like the cover at all. Look past the cover, look into the game. It is a fun game, and that's why it's on my list at 206. I'm looking over my list here, and this is a list here, a block of a bunch of new games here. It's kind of weird. At 205, awesome game. The Great Heartland Hauling Company. It's a truck driving game. It's one of these little small boxes. You're playing out these cards, going to these different areas, playing cards to pick up goods, playing cards to drop off goods. But every time you got to keep moving. You're moving by using victory points or by using gas cards, not a mix of the two. I just recently got the Badlands mini expansion for this. I have not played with it yet, but it adds a 6th player, 5th player I think, with a purple player, and it adds 2 other cards in the deck that look really awesome. Can't wait to get them into a game. Now this is a game that a good friend of mine recommended to me. I really trust his opinion and respect his opinion. He has added tons of games into my collection, and over the last run he put a lot of card games in there. Boo, I'm not a card game fan, but he thought I'd like them. There was maybe one other one in that list that kind of teased me a little bit, but I didn't get it. But Heartland Hauling Company was one I'd had on my list on and off here and there, and when he mentioned it I said, okay, I'll go on and do it. Great game. Play with the extra upgrades, the special abilities you can get going to different areas. That's great. I would not play. There's a difficult level where it's like toll bridges and roadblocks, and it's harder to get around the map. I wouldn't play that version because I just don't like it as much. I don't like the game being that hard. But with the expansion, with the with the little mini add-on you can put on with the game, comes with the game. But the mini add-on with the special abilities, yeah, get that one. That's a great one. I'll never play without that one again. But just go into different areas, delivering those goods. Also, at the end of the game ends when someone hits a certain point, depending on how many players you have. You think you've won because you crossed the finish line? Because the stuff in your truck that you did not sell, it's worth negative victory points. So I've seen people cross the finish line first, like get to that goal of points, and then lose it all. Lose it all at the end because they had too many items in their truck. It penalizes you from hoarding goods, which I like. So you want to be very efficient with your, you may not be able to finish first, but if that first player had stuff in there, I've seen this happen in our last game. I had 3 items left that I could not get rid of. And I was beating this other person, but the items I have were livestock, which cost the most, which gave me enough which lost me enough victory points to lose by him by 1 space. I could not believe it, but he did good on, delivering his goods. He had an empty truck by the time the game ended. Good on him. Kudos on him. I did not. But I didn't think about that and didn't count out and ended the game too quick and actually ended up losing the game even though I crossed the goal first. I love that about this game. If you saw this game before, you know what I'm talking about, and you passed on it, give it a second look. Really, really great game. Moving right along on my list of new games into my collection is number 204, Around the World in 80 Days. Now this game is very similar, meaning in the box it's supposed to be part of the, some kind of series of beautiful art, and it has these bookshelf look to it. This is Around the World in 80 Days. Is you're trying to, of course, get around the world. There are 80 spaces. You are paying coin to move certain spaces, getting coin by either going backwards or landing on certain spaces, getting rid of police news cards, and getting special cards that help you in the game. It's a little mathy, but not heavy mathy at all. I played this with a game group that gets confused easily when it comes to math. They had no problem figuring this game out. In fact, the more we played it, the more I actually enjoyed it. Again, like Oliver Twist, its sister game. The artwork is beautiful. I've never read Around the World in 80 Days, but I'm pretty sure it's thematic with all the specific cards and the names of the people on those cards and what they do. The end of the game is not just getting around the world, it's getting around the world with $10 or less in your pocket. And as you're spending money and making money, you need to plot that out, before you get to the end. So there'll be a little push and pull at the end to make sure you get under that $10 threshold. It doesn't behoove you to stock up on tons of money either at the end. There's different ways to play this game, and there's different ways because you can't land on another player, so the games are going to be different. There's a lot more replayability in this game than what you would think. Again, it's part of those little bookcase games. There's a third one, but they abandoned the style, so I didn't even bother looking at it. But both of those games are really beautiful looking, and they're incredibly fun. And obviously, I like Around the World in 80 Days a little bit better, but it is than Oliver Twist, which is the other one. But Around the World in 80 Days, unbelievably good. I know it won, I think, Spiel des Jahres a long time ago, and I can see why. Really great game. You could even play this as a family game too. It works good for both adults and families, and even kids can play it. Awesome game. Folks, out of all the mechanics that are out there in board games, my favorite one is worker placement. So at 203, the game Worker Placement is on there. And it's funny because you're working for a temp agency here, and as you're trying to give these awful people these stupid jobs, and like a hand model or something, or I can't remember what some of them are, you know, a guy who brushes off the debris off a racetrack or something. It's really weird, but you're trying to go around the board getting these cubes, which are experience, and getting them enough experience to match them up with a job to get victory points in the game. There's also a little thumbs up you want, because that lets you go first. Going first is very important, because he who goes first only has to play one meeple. If you want to go there, you can play 2 meeples, and of course you have limited supply of meeples and where to go. The game's super straightforward. It's very easy. I see this game for cheap, and the expansion can come with it for just as cheap. You can get it all for under 20 bucks. And I like the game. I mean, the artwork isn't the best, but if you love worker placement, just simple, fun worker placement, it is very thematic, trying to fill these job roles too, so everything is really fun. The expansion cards are okay too. You can buy buildings that other players can play on. They will get that reward, but you'll get a little kickback too. Sometimes you may not want to play that building because it may be too powerful for someone, or sometimes you have to pay the upkeep and no one's using the building. So it's a real big push and pull. You're like, man, I really need this. If I go to that building, I'll get it, but he'll get something good, and I don't want him benefiting from this. So there's that push and pull there. Even though some people do play on those buildings, it is just great. It's just such a fun, simple, beginner's level worker placement game called Worker Placement. Awesome game. At number 202 is a very simple, straightforward pick up and deliver game, but Bombay is fun. Bombay, you have these little elephants, you're moving around the board. Like I said, pick up and deliver. Different areas have different prices for different goods. Every time you go to make a sale there, the goods will switch around. Very unique mechanism that I really like, that changes the market. You know, we're paying the top mark for this product. Oh, you gave us that product? Okay, we got plenty now, so now we're paying the lowest amount for these if anyone else wants to come by. And you didn't get there in time. You're setting up these little toll bridges, I think, these little houses of your color. You try to get those early. You do lose out on deliveries, but you will be able to make some money in rupees. Rupees are, you know, income's hard to come by, so you definitely want to establish those roads out there quick. But like I said, you're also losing victory points because you're not making those deliveries. This is a really fun game. I wish my wife would play it with me, because I got it for her because it's very simple. It's a gateway game for pick up and deliver. It looks awesome on the table. It looks awesome. Those cubes that you collect can fit on the little carriages of the elephant. And I just thought the elephants looked nice too. My wife loves elephants. I was like, oh, maybe she'll play this. Nope, she won't play it with me. If she did, it would definitely be in my top 200. Definitely, without a doubt. But I bring this game out all the time. We still play it. We still have a blast with it. And this is another game, really fun game, you can get for pretty cheap. You're welcome. And finally, at number 201, a game that just missed out on my top 200. It's a co-op though, that's probably why. It's Police Precinct. I love Police Precinct. You're playing police, you're trying to go on an investigation to see who this crime, there's a murder and you're trying to solve out who did the murder. You're trying to catch this killer in X amount of weeks on the game. Every round is a week. But on top of just trying to complete, investigate and see who did it, you're also having to stop crime. I mean, for some reason in that precinct, there's tons of crime everywhere. Every time you're flipping over a card, there's a crime going on. If crime gets out of hand, you can lose the game. So you're driving around stopping crime or helping out traffic incidents. you know, or an escaped alligator or something, or there's little mini games, a stolen car. You got to catch that stolen car before it moves off the board. And there's thugs. There's gangs that are developing in different areas, and if they get too high, they're going to have crime go up. So you gotta bust the thugs on the street. Very thematic. You got to do a big balance of both, and it is hard. The game can really, I like the pendulum of this game. You think you're going to win, and then you lose, but you don't just lose barely. You lose awful. In one turn, the game went to I'm going to win to, oh, we got blown away. And then at the same time, it can go the exact opposite. You're like, I remember telling the guys one time, I said, we're not going to win this. It is physically impossible. And then everything that round went perfect, and we barely won, ended up catching the killer at the very last round before crime skyrocketed too. I love this game. I promise you this game would shoot way up if I could get more people to play it. And there's a dirty cop version that I want to play where one of the players is secretly trying to sabotage you. But if they get busted, then their power is greatly reduced in the game. And I love that. I love that. I want to play with the dirty cops so bad because you start getting suspicious of your players as you're playing this co-op too. It's a really smart mechanism. This game you can get probably the whole shebang for pretty cheap. I don't know if they're doing they do Christmas sales, Black Friday sales, something like that. But I remember Steve, the guy who owns it, I can't remember the name of the company right now, but he was really nice to me, gave me a little bit of a discount on the all-in package, and I'm so happy I got it all. I think this game is wonderful. With all the little mini expansions, it can be a little bit overwhelming at times. You don't want to play those the first round through, but afterwards you do want to put that in. Things like the gear and the specialists and stuff can really help you out, and you're really going to need all the help you can get. Corrupt Politicians is not your friend. It's event cards that can sometimes be good and a lot of times be bad for you. But either way, I'll play with everything now, and it's a lot of fun. All right, gamers, that's it for now, but tune in next time as I go through my top 200 games of all time. See you later.